Alrighty. Let's see here. I'm going to start off and let's see, we're going to mute that, and now we're rolling. Okay. So I hope everyone's doing well. You'll be seeing a picture soon. It's doing something weird over here. I think it's doing that. Okay, there we go. And then we get one of these. All right. So this is the Sunday, the every other Sunday show. Those of you who've been here before, glad to see you back. Those of you who are new, welcome. I'm going to pop the chat out so I can keep an eye on it a little bit better. Okay, drag that down there. We should be swell. People that have asked what time zone the stream is in, I am in the Central Standard time zone. Well, Central Daylight Time. I don't know. I'm in the Central time zone. It's the same one as like Chicago and a good portion of the Midwest. We've got the 4 time zones in America. There's Eastern, Central, Mountain, and Pacific. So, yeah, that's where I'm at. I believe that it is maybe, I think it might be 6 hours off of GMT. It sort of depends on where we are in the whole daylight savings thing. Sometimes we're 6, sometimes we're 5 hours off. -5, -6, that kind of stuff. Alrighty. Let's see here. Good morning from Ontario, Canada. Hello, Mike. Good morning from Ontario. Where's everybody else coming from? Since we were having so many discussions about time zones, I'm assuming you're not all here in town with me. I'm assuming you're probably all over the place, most likely. Got Belgium. We've got Sweden. We've got the phone ringing. Who the heck is calling us? It's Sunday morning. Nobody. We don't ever. We don't use the landline. We have one. We just don't use it. It's probably one of those. It's a telemarketer, I bet.
Cell phone from New York. Yeah, I'm not answering that.
No, cell phone from New York, so we're not going to answer that. Texas, Italy, UK, Paraguay. Ooh, Paraguay. Let's see here. We got Sweden, Australia, Moscow, South Africa, another Sweden, Nova Scotia. Ozog asks, what do you think of the new Black Crusade Warhammer campaign, The End Times? I'm not familiar with it. I don't know really what is it for 40K? There's a Black Crusade in 40K. I'm not really familiar with what that is. Ozog, sorry. All right, so Land Down Under, which I'm going to assume is probably Australia. Arizona, Bohemia. The Mons Olympus in Mars. That's a very, very long call, or whatever. I'm surprised you guys get internet there. Somebody's in the airport in Amsterdam, and they're waiting for their flight. So I'm glad that you've got something to watch to pass the time. UK, France, Hampton Roads, Virginia. I've never been to Virginia. All right, let's see. Tennessee, West Virginia, another Canada, Spain. Cool. Well, we're up to about 75 people watching. Bram asks, hey Adam, any thoughts on the Bolt Action expansion, Conflict 47? Yes. I'm very interested in playing... Let me scooch my chair a little bit. I'm very interested in playing it, hopefully soon. I've been interested in Bolt Action for a while, but I was already playing Flames of War, and I was like, do I want to go with 2 different scales of, World War II games, and I don't know. And then with... with the weird World War stuff that makes up Conflict 47, I became very interested. So for those of you that don't know, Conflict 47 from Bolt Action, or from Warlord Games, the people who make Bolt Action, is a game that is basically the same rules as Bolt Action, except that it is alternate history. There are mechs, there are lightning guns, there are jetpacks, there's stuff like that, and the war is kept going past 1945. It's now 1947, hence the title. So, yeah, it looks kind of cool, from what I understand, and I'm hoping that they're going to send me some, actually. I've been kind of in contact with them, and they're going to send me some stuff, hopefully, and then I'll probably talk about it more on the channel here, because I'm looking forward to it. Let's see here. It'll be... What do you think of the Warlord GW live stream? I haven't watched any of it. I know that they're starting to do some live streaming stuff, and good for them. Games Workshop is finally, paying attention to the fact that there's an internet, so that's awesome. To be fair, they've been getting better and better about it over the last year and a half since they got the new CEO. Just going to move the mic here a little bit. Hopefully it doesn't make too much noise. So, yeah, I think that's good, and I've been hearing a little bit about this live stream, and I'm glad that they're doing it, but I haven't really got a chance to watch any of it. So, Eric PA says, "I'm starting a Death Army. What's your thought on minimum unit size for skeletons?" Well, the minimum unit size for skeletons is 10, I believe. I guess I don't really have any thoughts on it. It is what it is, I think maximum unit size is maybe 30, or is it 40? I can look on my phone here if I want. Those of you who are playing Age of Sigmar, if you're not, you should really get the app, because it's really pretty darn awesome. I use it all the time. Let's see here. So, skeletons. Now the question is, are we talking about regular skeleton warriors or the archers? Skeleton warriors, minimum 10, maximum 40, and they're 80 per 10. You can't see that. It's too. If I do this, nope, that doesn't help either. All right. So anyway, yeah, I think it's interesting to, I don't think you would really be able to use skeletons even less than 10. That wouldn't make any sense. I think they would be immediately destroyed by a stiff wind, really. Piker Eyes says, "What advice do you have for removing the pewter bases off of Reaper minis?" Clippers and patience. That's really, honestly, the way I do it. I just can't. They're so difficult to get off in those situations. You can't get like a saw or anything under there, so you got to do it that way. Clippers and some patience, and then some files and some sanding paper. Let's see here. What advice do you have for removing... Oh, I just answered that question. Do you still play 40K? No, I don't. I did for quite some time, but I don't really play anymore. I thought for a bit, like with the new kill team that was coming out, that maybe that was going to get me back into it, but then I looked at the rules a little bit and saw that they were basically the same rules as the original kill team that I bought in ebook format probably 2 years ago. And you still need to have the main book, and you still need to have a codex and all that stuff, and it's just not for me, which is part of the reasons why I've been playing more Age of Sigmar, obviously, than that. So, yeah. Let's see here. Jonathan Eklund says, "Got interested in painting again after playing Total War Warhammer, but I was very skeptical of Age of Sigmar. Luckily, I found your channel, and now I'm sold on it." Well, good. I'm glad to hear it. Yeah, I know that, obviously, Games Workshop makes money off of the licensing they do with their different video games, both for fantasy and for 40K. But it does bring people into the hobby as well. So it is a smart idea on their part to basically get paid to some degree to license out their stuff, and it causes something that brings them more business down the road as well. So that's cool. It's a good idea. Let's see here. Mike Grimshaw asks, "Any thoughts on Fantasy Flight Games and Games Workshop ending their licensing agreement?" I've had several conversations about that the last couple of days since they announced it. They, for those of you that weren't keeping up on that, so Games Workshop has licensed stuff, speaking of licensing, to Fantasy Flight. So Fantasy Flight was making board games, they were making RPGs, they were doing all this stuff, and it was using Warhammer and Warhammer 40K licensing, properties and things like that. They made a card game, kind of like Netrunner, but it's for 40K, called Conflict. They They've made board games. They made a lot of different stuff. And then, of course, the whole line of RPGs for mostly 40K stuff. So the trick is that it was announced this week that they're going to be splitting ways and not doing that anymore after like February 28th of 2017, I believe. And the thing that's interesting is that I personally believe it's because X-Wing started to outsell Warhammer in general. Like there's a retail magazine / website. Now it's mainly just a website, but it's a retail thing where they track that, and retailers basically send in stuff and stats and saying this is how we sold things, this is how much we sold of this stuff or whatever, that kind of thing. And for the first time in, I don't know, 20 some years, in the non-collectible miniatures subcategory, Games Workshop was not number one, X-Wing was. So I think that some of that has probably moved it into, I think that's part of kind of what ended some of the relationship. So yeah. Dave Redman asks, have you looked into Heralds of Ruin? I'm assuming you mean their kill team rules for Heralds of Ruin. Yeah, I have done a little bit of that. I played a little bit of that. I downloaded it. Played a couple of games with a friend of mine. Yeah, it's not bad. It's cool, you know. But it's still, again, you still need to have the codex. You still need to have the main rule book and all that stuff. So it's not great for getting new people in. So that's kind of a thing. Let's see here. Best way to paint corn brass. I would probably lay down a chocolate brown base, and then I would throw some sort of brass color, whichever one you like the most, over it. Then I would throw a sepia wash over it, obviously letting it dry in between each step. And then I'd go back and kind of highlight with either that same brass or maybe a slightly brighter brass if you can find one. And then maybe just do some little touch-ups with a tiny little bit of silver here and there to show where the brass got worn, like maybe a little too thin or something like that. That's how I would do it. That's how I generally paint gold. I haven't painted like brass in quite some time, but it would be basically that same thing. Start with your base, throw a wash on it, generally sepia, like a brown wash might be too much. A black wash wouldn't be right. Then go back over, highlight again with the same brass, and then start to lighten it from there. That's what I would do. John says he uses a jeweler's saw to remove pewter Reaper bases. Yeah, you could do that. Those jeweler saws can sometimes you got to get like a really thin blade though if you don't want to, like, you know, kind of goof things up. It's kind of difficult. So, the noob painter asks, did you do your AOS points battle yet? I did one. It didn't go well because my opponent was cheating, not on purpose. We just he didn't realize that he needed battle line troops. You know, you have that kind of force organization chart, for lack of a better term, and all the models that he had, basically none of them were battle line. So we were like, it's fine, we'll play anyway. And, you know, he stomped me because he didn't have any regular troops, but it's fine. We're going to be playing again soon. There's more and more people in my local area that are starting to play it, so I'm looking forward to that. But yeah, I'm going to keep trying it out. I don't want to just like play it once and then be like, nope, I don't like it, because I'm not that kind of guy. I want to give it a chance, so we'll go from there. Snow asks, is Age of Sigmar less tactical than Warhammer Fantasy? I think it's a very different game because you're not moving them in blocks, and I mean, it is easier. It's certainly easier to pick up, but I think that, like, and I don't want to say like it's like chess, but like in chess, the rules are relatively simple, but the strategy can take a really long time to kind of get really good at. This is kind of the same thing. The rules are not super deep, although the war scrolls, each individual war scroll for each individual, unit can get to be pretty deep. But I think that it's a lot of the movement and placing, and a lot of people are like, oh, you just move to the middle of the map and you just roll dice until everyone's dead. Well, I don't. I like to run my Varangard up the side and try to flank, because you don't get a flanking bonus, but your opponent watches those Varangard, who are tough units, watches them like cruise up the side of the board and come behind them, and they're like, well, I got to do something about that. And so they peel off guys to go, mess with those dudes, and that just helps me. And so there's definitely tactics, I think. What's your opinion on using square bases in Age of Sigmar? If you want to, that's fine. I personally don't like it because I've never liked square bases. That's one of the reasons. That's one of the weird reasons that I never played Warhammer Fantasy, was because I never liked the look of square bases. I don't know why. I just like the round bases. So, I bought a bunch of used skeletons from a friend of mine, and I took the time to knock them all off. You've seen them if you watched last week. I took the time to knock them all off of the square bases and put them on round bases. So, if a person wants to show up and bring square base models, that's totally fine by me. But for me personally, I'm going to put them on rounds because that's the kind of dork that I am. Raymond asked, what do you think about the Lord Inquisitor prologue? The video that was put up recently. I watched a little bit of it, not as much as I should have. I keep forgetting to watch all of it. It's like 9 minutes, but I've watched some parts of it, and honestly, it looks pretty good. A friend of mine's bought the Ultramarine animated movie that was maybe 5 years ago, and this looks better than that. So right there, you're pretty good. So yeah. Let's see here. Douglas says, hearing people arguing on the motives of characters far beyond my knowledge of the game and backstory puts me off asking any questions or even trying the game. I'm not quite sure what that's related to, Douglas, but I think you should just kind of get together and just, if you want to play a game, play a game. And if you don't know the backstory, you could either just ignore the backstory. I honestly ignore a lot of the backstory. I never played fantasy, really. So when people start talking about specific characters and things like that in fantasy, I'm just like, well, I've heard that name before, but that's about it. I just play and have a good time, you know what I mean? So that's what I would do in that situation. Let's see here. Finally catching the live stream when it's actually live. Greetings from Denmark. Greetings, Rasmus. Let's see here. Could you please make a varnishing tutorial? I'm thinking about it. Not a tutorial per se. So the type of varnish that I prefer to use, and for those of you who've never varnished a model before, it's a spray-on clear stuff you put on after you've got everything painted and you're done. You want to protect your paint job. I like to use stuff made by Testers, which I think is an American company. They make paints and stuff for modeling and everything. They have this spray, this little tiny spray can called Testers Dull Coat, and it is my favorite matte varnish. But because it's in an aerosol can, I can only use it during certain parts of the year because I live in a part of the world where it is a frozen hellscape for about 6 months every year, it seems like. So you can't really spray outside when it's 2 degrees Fahrenheit. So I'm looking for a good airbrush varnish, and I have 2 in the basement that I bought years ago, and I kind of want to do a showdown. I have 2 models that have been like gloss coated, basically the same, and I'm going to try to see if I spray each one with these 2 things. So that's an upcoming video that's coming down. But basically, a simple tutorial in my mind: get yourself some Testers Dull Coat and spray it on a day where the temperature is above 60 to 70 degrees Fahrenheit and it's not very humid, and you don't put it on too thick, and you should be generally pretty happy. That's the easiest way to put it there. Let's see here. I have a hard time finding people to play with. I'm actually in Williamsburg. Okay. Finding people to play with is difficult in a lot of situations. Going to your local game store and talking to them sometimes helps, certainly, but yeah, it can be difficult. I'd like to make it easier in some way, hopefully someday. So we'll see how that goes. Let's see here. I saw people playing Age of Sigmar on movement trays. Do you feel this lends itself to the latest rules or not? I think some people play on movement trays either because they just don't want to let the old rule set go, or they have like a lot of armies and they just want to speed things up. So they just are like, well, I'm just going to move these guys, and that's fine. If you want to do it that way, you can do it that way. I don't have a problem with it. I don't really have a problem with a lot of things. You know what I mean? So there's way worse things in the world to worry about than whether someone uses square bases or circular bases, or someone uses movement trays or not. But the game lends itself to do it either way, which is, I think, part of the, I don't want to say beauty of the game, but yeah. Let's see here. The only minis I have now are the older. Oh, that's to somebody else. Let's see here. Okay, Anthony says, Uncle Adam, have you checked out the new White Dwarf yet? Not sure if you were into the old magazine to give a comparative view, but I'm curious about any opinion you have about the publication. I'm interested in seeing the new White Dwarf. My local store hasn't gotten one yet, which is a bummer. But I am interested in checking and seeing how different it is, because I used to read the old White Dwarf back in the day, and then they changed it to that weird skinny little weekly thing they put out for $4 a week, And that was basically just like, hey, here's a catalog of some new stuff that we're putting out like every week. And then they had that other magazine that was called Warhammer Visions, which was just pretty pictures and pretty much nothing else. I didn't cotton to much of any of that, honestly. I never bought a copy of Warhammer Visions. And I maybe only bought a copy or two early on when the new Warhammer, the weekly, came out, or the White Dwarf weekly came out, and it just wasn't for me. So I'm looking forward to seeing the new stuff, but my local store, like I said, hasn't gotten it yet. I don't have a Games Workshop store anywhere near me. Like, the closest one is about 110 miles away, so, or about 100. So, yeah, I don't really go there too frequently. Let's see here. Ronald says, what's your opinion on Blood Knights, and do you think it is best to field one huge unit or 2 to 3 smaller ones? Second part of that question, I am a terrible person to ask on that, because I am no strategist. I'll tell you that right now. I'm not good at it. My opinion on how Blood Knights look is that I think that their hats are stupid. They have like these weird, like they have bat wings on top of their heads, and I don't like the look of them. I understand that they're probably a pretty powerful unit, but for one thing, from what I understand, they're very expensive, like money-wise, not just points-wise, and I just don't like the way they look. So I've built some Hex Wraiths that came with my Start Collecting box, but I think that's about as far as I'm going to get in cavalry for them. So yeah, it's just, if they would get some better hats on those guys, I might be more interested. It's probably not the best reason in the world, but it's my reason, so there it is. Let's see here. James says, just finished collecting and nearly finished painting a 3,000-point Legion in less than a year. Hopefully to move on to some Necromunda stuff for a change of pace. Yeah, skirmish stuff is great for breaking up your hobby. When you're doing, like, I've got all these skeletons to paint, and every once in a while you break away and go, I'm going to work on these little 4 guys for this skirmish game. It really helps you kind of keep your motivation going. So that's a good idea. Jonathan says 2 degrees Fahrenheit is brutal. Oh, during the winter, that's a not terrible day, honestly. Around here, I remember getting up one day and it was negative 30 degrees Fahrenheit. That was fun. So I don't even know what that is in Celsius. Tim says, I put golden polymer varnish through my airbrush and it worked quite well. Or, excuse me, very well. Yeah, I've got some golden airbrush medium, but I don't have their varnish. I should look into it, though. I'd like to. Justin says, good morning. I bought my first airbrush. Boy, is it a game changer. Thanks for your videos of getting started with airbrushing. Yeah, airbrushing and wet palette are the 2 things that really made my painting get a lot better. And so it's really, really super helpful, I think. How do you store your paint pots? I would need to find a new way to store them, and I have a lot of paint pots in limited space. I store my paint pots in 2 ways. My wife is already laughing at me. One is I have a tackle box that I keep my paint pots in sometimes. Otherwise, I just keep them scattered all over the table amongst a bunch of other garbage that I use when I'm painting, and sometimes granola bar wrappers. Now, to be fair, the granola bar wrappers are very useful. If you've watched the video where I talk about how to cover the little holes in the slot bases, granola bar wrappers are good for that. Another thing granola bar wrappers are good for is that when you want to dry brush a color that comes in a dropper bottle, like if you have a pot, you can just dip your brush in there and then brush it off on a piece of paper and do some dry brushing. But when it's in a little squirt bottle, you can't dip your brush in there. So you put a little squirt of that stuff onto the plastic wrapper left over, because then you can dab it on there. If you put it into your wet palette, you are making a very liquid paint that's in the dropper even more liquid, which with dry brush, you don't want it to be too liquid, so you put it on that. Sometimes I even put it on the plastic wrapper and let it dry for a couple of minutes and then get at it, so it's a little tackier, because it depends on the paint. But so as far as how I store my paints, it's pell-mell at best. It's not right. Sometimes I watch Vince, when I watch Vince Venturella's videos, you can see his big paint rack behind him, and they're all in specific colors and the whole deal like that. And yeah, I don't have that going on. So let's see here. The free White Dwarf Mini was nice. Can't expect it every month, though, sadly. Well, no, that's probably true. But yeah, I've seen some really cool stuff on the Paint Showcase Club. People have been painting it, things like that. It's a neat-looking model. If I was into playing the Corn Blood guys, I can't remember what they're called. But if I was playing those guys, I would be definitely interested in it, so yeah. The Noob Painter says nail polish stands. Yeah, a lot of people go on to like Amazon and buy like these clear plastic nail polish stands that they sell to like places that do manicures and pedicures and stuff like that, and then people put those on their desks and stack all their bottles on them, and they're like kind of tiered and clear and not super expensive. So a lot of people use those for their paint bottles and pots and all that stuff. Slaughterpriest, that's the guy that comes in the new White Dwarf. Yeah, he's cool. Let's see here. Ronald says, I'm using Morgul Knights as my Blood Knights for the same reasons as you. I prefer my elite knights to look imposing like Nazgul instead of court jesters on a horse. Yeah, no, that's true. They the Blood Knights are pretty goofy looking, so yeah. Jesse the Slayer says, can I have a shout out? Okay, there you go. Let's see here. I've been looking to get a companion army for my Sylvaneth to get people into playing. My thought is Khorne Demons is good opposite. What are your thoughts? Opposite of Sylvaneth. Yeah, Khorne is pretty opposite. Or Nurgle, although color schemes, they're both kind of greenish. So maybe you want to go like red versus green, then Khorne versus more Sylvaneth, though they're kind of greenish-brown, depending on how you paint them. But yeah, that's kind of cool. Matthew is telling us here that negative 40 degrees Fahrenheit is negative 34 Celsius. So that's very helpful. So yeah, that's cold. I know like at 40, they almost are exactly the same. Negative 40 Fahrenheit and Celsius are nearly the same. So let's see here. Midwest weather can be a bit chilly. I was an Iowa boy for many years and remember many below 0 days. It's true, Dorky Dad. That's, yeah, that's coming. Winter is coming, as they like to say. Northern Ireland, humid and wet, regardless of the temperature. Yeah, yeah. I was thinking about going to Northern Ireland to see the Beasts of War guys one time, and I was looking through Wikipedia just to see like what time of year, what temperature, and stuff like that. And I was just astounded at how the temperatures, like, for where we live in Wisconsin, it seemed as if the temperature never changed year-round in Northern Ireland. It was like, oh, well, you know, maybe highs of around 70 and lows of around 40 on average, you know. And that's Fahrenheit again. Whereas I remember a year, probably 10, maybe 15 years ago, where the temperature changed 125 degrees in one calendar year. There was a day that was over 100 here, and there was a day in the winter where it was under negative 25, and this was in the same 365 days. So that's a variation, and I'm surprised I did not crack, you know, like from the stress of the temperatures, like when you put like hot water into a cold cup. Anyway, let's see here. Jeff says he's painting the Slaughterpriest at work today. Well, that's a pretty good job if you can paint models at work. I had a security job once right after college where I got to build models after work, or during work, but I never really painted them there. So Anna says painting Beastmen at the moment, and I'm pretty sure that they don't take a good care of their weapons. Any tips for a new painter on how to make weapons look more used? I usually paint them metallic, then I put some wash on them. Frequently a brown wash, not so much sepia and not black, but more like a brown. Like if you're going to use a Games Workshop, it's Agrax Earthshade. And I put it on there, a layer of it. Then I go back and I dab it after it's dried to get like spots, so there's like layers of wash on top of wash. And then after, maybe I do a little bit of black too, and then I take some bright silver and I kind of dry brush it along the edge. Like the axe is kind of rusty, but they've been actually eventually recently using it, so that's rubbed off some of the rust, that kind of stuff. And then if you want to splatter a little bit of blood on it, that looks cool too. But yeah, they don't keep their tools super, clean and sharp. So yeah. Bloodbound. Someone just, an angered mouse told me that Bloodbound. Khorne, Bloodbound. Let's see here. Is Gibbering Geek or Gibbering Geek? That's a good question. I'm coming back to the hobby. However, a lot of my Citadel paints seem to have dried out a little. Is there a way to rescue them? I have been told there is. I don't particularly know what it is, but it's not water. I can tell you that. I would do a little research online and find out, but I'm going to bet that it's probably some sort of acrylic thinner instead of water. Water's just going to actually break up and make the pigment less thick, but thinner is supposed to help. So some other people in here may have some more stuff, but otherwise I take a look online and you'll find out more information there too. But yeah, in some situations it can be done. If it is dry, then it's generally done. But if it's just drier or dryish, then sometimes you can bring it back, but not always. Let's see here. Having trouble settling on a basing theme for my Stormcast army. Thinking of just doing with an ashen theme since it's the end times. I like doing ash. Honestly, most of the I almost never do like a nice, lovely green field. You know what I mean? It's almost always like rocks and ash and stuff like that. It's generally the way that I do my basing. So yeah. Let's see here. Do I work with green stuff? Do you work with green stuff? Being me. Started my Nurgle CSM army and want to do cool stuff with green stuff. I do a little bit of green stuff. I don't do a ton with it. There are people who are far, far more talented at it than I am. There is a channel on YouTube called Van Hammer, I believe. V as in Victor, Van Hammer, and his name is Van McClune. He's a good guy, and he's got a big beard. He's super good at green stuff, so you should probably try to watch some of his channel, and you could find some pretty interesting tutorials and things like that, I think. And he shows off a lot of his work. So yeah, green stuff, I just know you got to keep it wet. You want to, like, if you don't want it to be sticking to you and to your tools, you got to keep water nearby. And when you're sculpting with it, you want to keep your tools wet. You want to keep your fingers wet. Otherwise, they'll start sticking to you. So yeah, that's all I know about green stuff. Did you do a video on grinding up old sprues to use for scenery? I haven't, but I should, because I have done that before. The house that we bought that we're currently in, one of the many things that came with it, including a waterlogged set of encyclopedias in the basement, was also a really old meat grinder, like the kind that you like tighten down onto a table, you know, and then you crank the big crank. And I put sprues through it, and I nearly died because it's really hard to do, but it comes out in little pieces of rubble, so it's kind of cool. If you can find one of those at a rummage sale or a boot sale, bonnet sale, whatever you guys call it overseas, it's not a bad, not a bad idea. I lived in South Georgia for a few years, so humid every day was like walking out of your house into a wet mattress. Yeah, that would be no fun. We get a decent amount of humidity here, but not like in the South. So yeah. Stegodon or Engine of the Gods? That's a good question. I have fought against both in a single game. A guy was running both of those maybe 3-4 months ago. Engine of the Gods seemed like it was more powerful. Now, of course, with the new points, at the time when we were playing, there were no points, so who knows? Now, I guess take a look at your list and see what you think. But they're both basically kind of the same model. I mean, the top part is different, but the main lizardy dude is mostly the same. So that's kind of cool. All that Seraphon stuff, Lizardmen stuff, I think is cool looking. I don't see too many models out of that line that I don't like. I think they're all pretty cool. I want to get into Age of Sigmar. What would you recommend as a good starting army? I'm a guy with limited funds. Well, I would tell you to get one of their start collecting boxes because they're a very good deal. They're $85 American, and in a lot of situations, they come with an $85 model, plus also a bunch of other models. So, I mean, some people have run the numbers. Those $85 boxes are usually retail between $120 and $140 if you were to buy them separately. So I would pick one of those start collecting boxes, start putting it together, start painting it, and then maybe like build off from there. Like you're not going to be able to, if you're looking to play with points, you're not going to get a 1,000-point army out of those boxes. But if you're not playing with points, you'll get a decent, good starting force. So yeah, those boxes are a pretty good deal. If you're interested in the Khorne Bloodbound or in the Stormcast Eternals, then the starter box, which is like $125 retail, is really a good idea. But then you want to either A, split it with somebody who wants the other guys, or you would maybe just buy it and try to sell the other guys on eBay or something like that. But that's a way to go. Jeff Phillips says he always has his portable nerding kit at work. Excellent. I'm glad you've watched that video. Portable nerding kit is a great thing to carry around if you're in those situations where you can do such a thing. Trevor says, "Morning, Adam." Morning. I'm going to have a little bit of coffee here. Let's see here. How do you paint blood? That's a good question. How do you paint blood? I'm not super successful with it, but one way I like to try to use is an old toothbrush, and then you get some red paint on it, and you splatter it, and then you get splatters on the thing that you're trying to get, but that only works well once in a great while. Other times you're like, well, that didn't work as well as I would have liked, and then you just get a red thumb. So, but, I know there's a technical paint that GW makes that's called, I believe, Blood for the Blood God, so that's cool. You could try using that stuff. I know some people use a Tamaya red smoke color. the trick, I think, is to not dab it on with like a brush, because then it looks dabbed on with a brush. You want to somehow splatter it on if you can. So Snow asks, where was my security job? Is it because you took the night shift that gave you free time? I wouldn't say I took the night shift. I was put on the night shift a lot. It was at a diaper plant, and my main job was basically to make sure the place wasn't on fire. And it wasn't like I even had to walk around. I basically sat in a booth. Trucks drove by, and I had to write down the number that was on the truck. So if I could hear them coming, I could look up, write down the number, and go back to doing what I was doing. And then, basically, like, the fire alarm would go off all the time because it was a paper plant, it was diapers. So there was a lot of very sensitive fire alarms, and they would go off false alarm all the time. So my job was basically to be a step between the fire department and the fire alarm. So the fire alarm would go off. I would call in and say to the foreman, is this a real fire? And they'd be like, no. I'd be like, okay, cool. And then I would not call the fire department. But that was basically it. It was very rarely that I actually had to walk around and do stuff. It was mainly sitting. This was 20 years ago. So yeah. Anyway, that's where it was. It was a diaper plant. So I did not get free diapers. But then again, I didn't have a use for them. And I still don't. So it's fine. Let's see here. What else have we got? So you guys are talking about using a penny to bring back dry paint. I don't even know how that would work. I'll have to go back and look at that. Let's see. We've got hello from San Jose. Have I ever been to Sweden? No, I haven't. Sounds lovely, though. Manchester. Have I looked into Team Yankee? I know what Team Yankee is. I've watched some videos about Team Yankee. I think it's kind of a cool concept. I'm glad that Battlefront is going and moving into other areas, and the fact that it is, it's historical but not. Like, it's all real vehicles and units and all that stuff. It's just, they're fighting in a way they never actually really fought. The whole idea behind Team Yankee is that it is it's not alternate history. It was a novel, from what I understand, about what would happen, or what happened when World War III almost happened, but it didn't. You know what I mean? So it's like, it's the 80s. There's all the vehicles that you had in the 80s and all that kind of stuff, and there's this battle going on in Germany, between East and West Germany, basically. Something that kind of. So it's like NATO versus the Soviets, and it's a thing. And Birmingham got nuked, and Minsk got nuked, and so. It's alternate history, but it's not like Conflict 47, where there's mechs and lasers and jetpacks. It's just like, here's what happened if this battle would have actually happened, which it didn't. So anyway, it's interesting. Let's see here. Have you pre-ordered Bolt Action 2nd Edition, or have you heard about some of the rules changes? I have neither pre-ordered it. No, I don't know about the rules changes. I know that they're not really, they're not big changes. There's kind of smaller changes and things like that. Things have been tweaked, from what I understand, so it's kind of interesting. Let's see here. Use blood for the blood god to paint blood. Yeah, that's not a bad stuff. I don't own any, but I've seen stuff done with it. It's kind of a nice, kind of a pseudo-transparent, glossy, red. Dorky Dad says, is a red thumb the mini painter's equivalent of the gardener's green thumb? Well, depends on the painter. With Sam, I can tell when he's been painting for a long time that day when he's got paint on his mouth, because if you've watched any of the videos where Sam is painting, he has a tendency to lick his brush. So if he's got some paint on his lip here, then he's been painting for a good long time that day. Also, a lot of times you'll see people when they're doing tutorials and they have a bunch of paint on their thumb. That's basically because they're trying to get their brush to a point, so they've dipped it in the in the paint, and then they just brush a little bit on their thumb, and then they paint the thing that they're going to paint. So you see it on their thumb a lot. That's kind of your painter's thumb, is what that is right there. So let's see here. Someone new to Wargaming Sigmar is modeling spears, etc., to be pointing as far out as possible frowned upon. So there's part of the rules in Age of Sigmar is that it was not measuring from base to base, but you're supposed to be measuring from model to model. So some people were like, well, then I'll be able to make a spear stick way out, so I'm a lot closer than I seem. But the trick is then you're also a lot closer to someone who's trying to attack you, or you're trying to attack you, but you could maybe then turn so that it's frowned upon to some degree, you know, like my skeleton guys, which they're all down in the basement right now, but my skeleton guys with the spears, their spears are they're holding them up, which also just helps because then you can kind of get them closer together. When they're sticking their spears way out, it's very difficult to stack them as close together as you need to get them because they need to be an inch apart. It's not like 40K where your models need to be 2 inches apart to be in coherency. It's 1 inch in Age of Sigmar. So that was basically just a reminder to my friend Kevin, who thought it was 2, and I was like, I'd never called him on it, but eventually I was like, you know, you're supposed to be an inch apart, not 2 inches. And he was like, what? And then we had to look it up. So any conversion items for better fitting Neferata into a vampire counts aesthetic? Yeah, I would have to say it would be paint, because I've been thinking about that too. Like, I would like to magnetize that model so I could switch between Manfred and Nefertata, and she's sort of Egyptian-y looking. Like, Manfred obviously is not, but she is kind of Egyptian-y looking. And yeah, I would just not paint any golds, no brasses. I would just go any metallics would be silver. Maybe go with some more reds if you can to put into that color versus blues. Because I mean, if you think of Tomb Kings, you think of blue and gold. So just if you don't paint her those colors, it might help. I'm not sure what else you could do conversion-wise, like actually to the model to make that happen. So I'm not sure. Hello there, Adam in chat. Sweden here. Rhino of Pleasure. Hello, Rhino. Ventus asks, what am I currently working on? Well, I will show you that in probably about maybe, I don't know, maybe 10, 20 minutes. And we'll talk a little bit about the guys that were in the thing over here. If I can make this happen, you can see, nope, not those guys. I forgot to switch it out this week. Sorry. The other guys, the guys that were in the thumbnail for the video, which are my 2 HQ units, my leaders for my Death Army. There's 2 Wight Kings. And so that's what I've been working on most recently. So let's see here. Alex asks, I just joined. Did you already show the Wight Kings? I did not. I think just... Originally, I was like, when I first started doing this live show, I was like, oh, I'm going to sit here and I'm going to paint or I'm going to build and I'm going to talk while I'm doing it. Well, that's really difficult with the way the layout is because the camera to do that in is way over here. So for me to be able to possibly do it, I'm like this, which is not super helpful. Nobody needs to see that. So basically, it's been me answering questions, which I'm super glad to do and have this conversation. But then after about the first hour, then I will usually talk a little bit about the actual subject for the week and go, okay, well, here's the thing. And then I'll show that stuff for a bit, and then I'll go back to answering questions, and then we'll hit 11 o'clock, my time, and then it'll be cool. So that's kind of the way that things have evolved with the show, which is cool. You know, the worst thing is when you are working with a show, especially one that is as interactive as this, with a chat window and all that stuff, and you guys asking questions, and you decide as a creator, nope, it's going to be the way I say it's going to be. You know what I mean? That is the easiest way to make people be like, but I would want to ask a question about this. If you just decide you're following a very strict, you know, like this is the way the show is going to be, well, that's so things evolve, and so this show evolves, and at this point it's evolved into mainly me answering questions, which is cool. I like doing it. I like the conversation, and then after about an hour talking about the subject a little bit, and then going back to answering questions. So just going forward, you guys can be clear that if you want to actually just like, if you just want to step in and see the thing that I'm talking about, if you come in after about the first hour, you can catch it. And then if you have got other things to do, that's cool too. But if you want to come in and hang out and do the QA stuff and everything, and that's what I'm here for. That's why we're doing this on the internet. I could just be talking otherwise. So yeah. Have you played against an Order army based around the Empire? No. I don't know anybody in my area that plays Order. Well, that's not true. I know some people who play, my friend Kevin is building Wood Elves, their Order, but he doesn't have them done yet. I got another friend, Jason, who's building Sylvaneth, their Order, and I know a guy who has got Stormcast, but I haven't played against any of those 3 armies yet. So yeah, I don't really have any good, and definitely not Empire. I don't know anybody in the local area that's playing Empire. So I know there's people who used to play regular Warhammer Fantasy, so there's probably some of those guys that might have had Empire, but I haven't seen them playing Age of Sigmar yet. So, a lovely hello from Germany. One question. Oop, it went off. Dang it. Sorry. Scooch up just a bit to catch that. One question about the Skeleton Horde box. How do you choose if you use a black or skeleton primer? Oh, I always use bone primer. So I use Krylon, they make a line of camouflage paints, which I've talked about here before, and I use one of the kind of tan colors as my primer. With somebody like Arkin the Black or somebody like that, I still generally, well, it depends actually. I haven't painted that model yet, so that's a good question because I don't know if I'm going to make the steed that they ride on, if I'm going to make that steed bone colored or something else. So if he's going to be bone colored, then I'm doing the whole thing in that color. But if the only thing that's bone colored is the actual figure, then I don't know. That's a good question. But in general, with normal skeletons and stuff like that, I always use a bone colored primer because it just makes things a lot easier. So let's see here. Barafosteel Founder. What's your take on Fantasy Flight and GW parting ways? I talked about that a little earlier. It didn't surprise me. I think that it is partially because Fantasy Flight is starting to eat Games Workshop's lunch as far as miniatures are concerned, because X-Wing has been outselling Warhammer stuff to some degree. The ICV2, which is a website for retailers, they have a chart where they show sales reported from independent game store owners, and last quarter they showed that X-Wing outsold Warhammer, and when I saw that, I thought, I bet those guys are not going to be friends much any longer. So yeah, that's kind of the thing. Let's see here. Hello, do I know any Swedish? I know neither any Swedish people, like in real life, as opposed to, and I don't know any Swedish language. Sorry. Blaster Dark. Let's see here. Just watched your previous video pep talk. Was pretty sage advice. What is your view on someone who enjoys the hobby aspect but is bummed out with the gaming aspect? I think that's fine. I mean, some people, I know plenty of people who just like to paint. They like to collect and paint, and they don't ever play. And there's nothing wrong with that. You do you. Do your own fun. If you only like to play with these two guys and you don't want to play with anybody else ever, there's nothing wrong with that. That's awesome. As long as you guys are all on the same page, everything's cool. If you only want to play tournaments ever and only want to ever try to win, and that's your thing, you just don't care about painting, that's cool too. However you want to play, and however you want to do it, however you want to collect, all that stuff is fine. As long as you're positive about it and stuff like that, I think that's great. I like the painting aspect more than playing, but I do enjoy playing. So, but I'm not a tournament player. So, that's kind of where my personal flavor's at, but that's how it works out. So yeah, I'm glad that people liked, the video from Friday, from a couple days ago, it got good views. I'm glad that people liked it. I kind of like doing those type of videos that are a little bit more philosophical or editorial, because they have a tendency to get people's attention all across the spectrum. Like if I do an Age of Sigmar video and a person's like, well, I don't play Age of Sigmar, I only play Bolt Action, or I only play 40k, they're less likely to watch that video. But if I do one just about painting and the person's like, oh, I don't want to learn how to paint very much or whatever, but if you do a video that's about how to think of overall gaming stuff in general, or how to think about overall painting stuff in general, or whatever, that can hit a lot of different subcategories, and people can be like, oh, I'm interested in that. And someone else who plays a completely different game can be like, oh yeah, that does sound interesting. And so those types of videos kind of do that again. Again, the phone, I gotta take that thing. No one ever calls us on our landline, so it's very strange that it's happening. Anyway, I don't know. I think you guys can probably hear that. Maybe just in the background. Let's see here. Stormcast Retributors and Paladins are badass when playing against or with. Keep that in mind. In the future and someday, Stormcast will probably be my third army, because I bought the starter box and I have them, and so I'm like, I can just add some stuff to them, and I think they're cool. I haven't been able to figure out how I want to paint them. I don't think I want to just do the normal gold metallic with the kind of blue highlights, but I haven't quite been able to figure out how to go with that yet. So let's see here. Looks like you guys are having a good conversation. That's cool. A squad of 20 great swords with Warpriest's Prayer for reroll and wild form from the Battle Wizard is insane. That's. See, I've never been the type of guy who can I don't know. It's like I've got friends that can just look at the rules for a game or look at the stats for something and just figure out Like they're able to see the matrix and go, okay, well the best build for that is this and this and this, and there you go, and that's the most effective. And I'm looking at the same thing, going, those Blood Knights have stupid hats. I don't like their hats. You know what I mean? I just don't see the rules the same way. So yeah, that's. I'm glad that there's different types of people and we can both be in the same hobby, but I do look at the rules sometimes and just go, yeah, this sounds fine to me. And then a friend of mine who's really good at strategy is like, that's a terrible idea. You shouldn't do that. And I'm like, well, I've got them painted, so I'm going to do it. Let's see here. Have you ever tried 40k orcs? I own a very tiny little, maybe 400 point orc army that a friend gave me, actually. He painted them up for a combat patrol and then was like, oh, that's right, I don't like 40k, I forgot. And then he gave them to me because at the time I was playing 40k, and I've not really ever done anything with them, but I should probably, because they're nicely painted, they're cool. I like some orc stuff. I've never played them because they have a tendency to kind of be a bit of a horde army, like you need a zillion of them. But yeah, that's where that goes. Let's see here. Wish we could link pics. Would love to some critique on my War Priest convert. Well, I would tell you, Jimmy, that I would tell you to go into the Facebook group. Sign up there. It is on Facebook. It's called the Tabletop Minions Paint Showcase Club. I should really make a screenshot and make it so I can switch that so you guys can see it. But the Paint Showcase Club has got a lot of really great people in there. I don't know, 1,500 people in that group now, I think. And people are in there doing really great work, putting up pictures. There's conversation back and forth on technique and things like that, but it's just a lot of pictures, people showing off their work, people showing off work in progress, asking questions. Do you think I should do this with this guy? Do you think, whatever, this is where I'm at right now, what do you think? And it's really been turning out great. So if you have a Facebook account, you go and you say you want to join, and then I get a thing, and then I generally try to trigger them fast. There's a lot of spammers. Not in the group, hopefully. If you guys see a spammer, report it, and I'll try to get rid of them as soon as possible. But there's a lot of people who ask to be in the group who are like, oh, hey, this person asked to be in the group at 4 o'clock this afternoon. They've been a Facebook member since 4 o'clock this afternoon. And I'm like, yeah. So if you've never joined Facebook before, if you're just joining up for the first time and you want to join the club, let's say you're joining Facebook because you want to join the club. I appreciate it, really. That's cool. Try to send me a separate message and go, hey, I'm not actually a spammer who's going to try to sell you sunglasses, because if you've just joined Facebook, I'm generally not going to let you in because I figure you're probably a spammer. So a little bit of behind the scenes FYI there for you. Thoughts on Seraphon? Lizardmen are cool looking. I would, if I didn't already have that starter box of Stormcast, I would maybe look into eventually down the road, third army might be Lizardmen. I mean, technically, if I wanted to, I could mix them together because they're both order, but I think they're cool. If you can paint them really well, I think they're a lot of fun to paint from what it looks like. So that's about all I know. Otherwise, as far as like their stats and rules, I am, again, not the dude to ask, frankly. Alex says, I remember you saying something about doing Age of Sigmar bat rap sometime in the future. Is that still a thing, or did I misunderstand? I do still hope to do that soon. I'm still trying to figure out some technical issues. Also, I don't watch a lot of bat raps myself, so I'm not super motivated to do it. Also, I don't have a lot of people to play with here that would be interested or interesting in a bat rap, I think. Because the thing about me doing a bat rap, it's not going to be about strategy and tactics because I'm not super good at those. So, I'd be basically selling you a bill of sale that is not really valid. I'd be like, oh, you should definitely run these guys because I like their hats. That's not useful. But for me doing a bat rep, I think it would be great if I had some people here and it was more of a personality and more of almost a banter bat rep, where it was more about the people kind of playing the game and showing you how the game works, as opposed to, well, here's how you win at this, or whatever, because I'm not that guy. So that's been the issue, is A, trying to really get the motivation to do it, and B, trying to find people to play with. I can play with people at the local shop, but the other thing too is you generally want to play with people who have a painted army. So I'm one of the few people that I know right now playing Age of Sigmar in our local area who has a painted army. I could probably get Sam in. He's got maybe orcs, but I got to double check on that. So we'll see. Eventually, maybe Sam and I will get together and play a game. That could be cool, but we'll see how that goes. Let's see here. Are Tomb Kings in Age of Sigmar? I haven't played Warhammer for a few years now because of school, and I can't seem to see them on the GW website. Tomb Kings were discontinued. Now, that being said, if you have Tomb King models, you can still get the War Scrolls, which are like... So if you've played Fantasy in the past, you used to have a book, an army book, which is kind of like a codex for 40k, and you would have a codex. Well, you don't do that anymore. You don't buy the rules, because the rules are only 4 pages, and they're a free download PDF, or you can get them on the app, the free app, Android or iOS. And then in that, there will be all the rules for... You can also download the rules for the War Scrolls, which are like basically the information for each possible unit. You can get those units for Tomb Kings. You still, again, can also get them on the app. So if you've got Tomb King models already, you can just take them and start playing with them in Age of Sigmar. If you want to buy new ones, that you can't do anymore because they've discontinued that line. So you can go on eBay and look for stuff, but from what I understand, it's going for a lot of money these days. So that's kind of what's going on. Let's see here. Yes, orcs work best in big numbers, which is why they're a horde army, just like in 40k, Imperial Guard, Tyranids, same kind of stuff. Let's see here. Have you ever tried to paint something else? Besides miniatures, you mean? When I was a kid, I did some airplanes, and I don't know if I did a car or not, but I did do some airplane models when I was a little kid. But mostly, since I've gotten older, it's been predominantly tabletop war games. That's what I've been doing. Let's see here. Anna says they are themed around the Milka chocolate cow. Oh, I saw that on the Paint Showcase Club. Yeah, I did see that. That was relatively recent, like this week, I think, if you remember correctly. Yep. Nihilistic Dogma. My friends keep saying I will grow up to be you, Adam. Not a bad thing, if you ask me. Well, I appreciate it. I don't know why they're telling you that, but that's cool. Let's see here. Jimmy says, I can see the Beastmen. Definitely my next army. They were my first when I was 12 years ago. Still got that first White Dwarf that got me hooked. Beastmen are cool. Beastmen are very... I just love the sculpts. I mean, they're not super powerful necessarily, but I just love their faces. They all are like... They have that face like this. And they're great. I think I've got a unit of them painted, and I just actually bought some more on the... They're like not out of print, but they're web exclusives now. I bought some Ungors on the GW website. I have not bought anything on the GW website direct ever. So this is the first time, but I needed the 130 millimeter round base for my Terrorgeist, and you can't get one anyplace other than GW. I found one on eBay, but it was like twice the price, and I was like, ugh. So I bought it, or I put it in my, the shopping cart, and then I'm like, well, I can get free shipping if I hit $65. So I was looking around for stuff, and the Ungors, which I can turn into archers for my Beastmen, you get 10 of them for like $24. And I was like, well, that's a really surprisingly good deal for Games Workshop. I'm amazed by that. So I bought 2 boxes of them and then the Bray Shaman or something like that. And that came to like $68 or $70. So I was like, okay, cool. So that's the first order I've ever made from GW, but I've got those guys coming, so I'll have some more archers to add to my Chaos Army, which really right now in my Chaos Army has like literally almost no range attacks except a little bit of Skaven stuff. So that's my story about right there. Let's see. So yeah, the Beastmen I think are very cool, and I like the fact that I can mix them in with Skaven and with Nurgle guys and regular Warriors of Chaos, and all that stuff. That's one of the things I like a lot about, Age of Sigmar, which I've said many times in the past. Matthew says, Wreck Age Bat Rap Day Trip. That would be something we could definitely try. I actually will probably be seeing Matt in October, mid-October. I'm going to be going. This is a good segue. Nice. So, mid-October, the 15th and 16th, I believe, I'm going to be at this thing right here. I got to figure out where to put that better. This is a small convention in my local town, Oshkosh, Wisconsin. It's called New Gamapalooza. NEW stands for Northeastern Wisconsin, which is roughly where I'm at. And it's a small convention that is maybe 250 people. 250 people show up over the course of... well, it's technically Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, but I only go Saturday and Sunday because I'm working on Friday. So yeah, it's mainly board games, but I'm going to be there. I'm going to have a booth. I've been there the last couple of years, and I'm going to be running my videos, and I'm going to be maybe selling some of the merch, which I haven't put up yet, but I've got some of it in, so I might be selling some of that. I'll probably be selling some used games. I'll be doing demos. I'll be doing a demo of Song of Blades and Heroes, which I love to do at pretty much any convention I go to. And Matt and Anton from Hyacinth Games, the makers of Wreck Age. Matt is our moderator here. They live in the Chicago area, which is about 3 hours south of me by car, and they're going to be driving up and doing the thing and stuff, and it's going to be a lot of fun. So if you're anywhere near the middle of Wisconsin, or if you want to drive to a local convention, New Game of Palooza is a lot of fun. You can stay. It's on the UW Oshkosh campus, and it's in a building, and there's dorm rooms above the building, upstairs, and you can stay there for super cheap. It's like $40 a night, and you can stay in a dorm room, and then there's towels and linens and all that stuff. You have to share a bathroom and all that stuff. But if you went to college, it's like that. You walk down the hall, and there's a bathroom down there. So it's like cheap to get in. It's cheap lodging, and it's a fun little convention. So if you're anywhere nearby and you're coming by, I'll be there. Matt will be there. Come by and say hi. So again, that's coming up the 14th through the 16th. I'll only be there the 15th and 16th. So that's just a little over a month away. Yeah, just a little over a month away. So anyway, that was my little impromptu ad. Oops. For the day on that. So let's see here. I want to see a bat rep which says, and these guys have +1 to their rolls because of their nifty hats. I can see adding a little bit of house ruling there. That'd be fine. Let's see. I would love to watch bat reps that are being played for fun and not super competitive. I play for fun, therefore I make a ton of mistakes. Yeah, honestly, that's the thing too. And it's sort of counterintuitive because, a battle report, it's difficult. I don't know. It's difficult to make them fun sometimes because the people who are playing them for people who are like serious about the game and the rules and the strategy. And so yeah, that's honestly that's the hard part for me right now. So off-topic question: do you support an NFL team, and if so, explain why this team is not called the Cleveland Browns? I live in Wisconsin, so this is Green Bay Packer country. I don't really watch sports. My wife, she's a big sports fan, specifically football. She's a big Packer fan. I don't generally watch too much. I'm usually downstairs painting. Sports, it's kind of like watching a bat rep, except for a game that I don't even play. You know what I mean? Because I don't play football. So anyway, yeah. That's it, pretty much right there. I like the name Cleveland Browns. That's a fun name. Let's see here. Hey there. New to the game, have bought too many boxes of Stormcasts to the point where it's weighing me down. Want them to be perfect. Anyway, what's your favorite minion you're most proud of? Well, just to touch on the first parts, you don't want to be weighed down. I did a video about don't be a wargaming hoarder. You might want to watch that. And you want them to be perfect. I did a video about that too, called The Price of Perfection. I'll just tell you right now, spoiler alert, it's prohibitive. So, paint them, get them going, and then go on. You know what I mean? Don't just say, well, gosh, it's not quite perfect. I need to go back and, just get them to where you can put them on the table and have fun with them, and then, learn from that. What's my favorite minion I'm most proud of? Probably Uncle Tickles, which if you watch a couple episodes ago, I kind of showed him off. He's a Chaos Terminator Lord in Terminator armor with the lightning claws. So yeah, if you go back a couple, you can see him. Jimmy's right. They'll never be perfect, but stripping the paint isn't hard, so just go nuts. Yeah, so like if you paint them and you're like, these are terrible, I hate them, well then just strip them and do them again, and then you get better every time you do it, and or practice on other stuff, and then come back to these guys. That's a lot of different ways to do that. Just picked up the Kill Team box, but I don't know how to set up my Tau. There's options for everything, and I don't know the difference. I don't know much about Tau anymore. Tau was my first 40k army a long time ago, and they've had, I don't know, like 5 codices since I bought, maybe not that many, but it seems like a lot. They came out with a bunch of codexes all of a sudden in a row, and so I don't really know much about the Tau, frankly, anymore, so sorry about that. But they're cool. I mean, they kind of look like anime kind of stuff. Let's see here. I'm ripping up some conversions I just finished because they look bad, so redoing stuff is part of the fun. Yeah, I mean, honestly, one of the things I do enjoy is sometimes going onto eBay and buying like used stuff and then just stripping it or taking it apart and then putting it back together and making something that looks cool out of it, but yet, you know, maybe is a little bit converted and stuff like that. So, yeah, I think that's fun. Let's see here. And you can get a program called Battlescribe to look up how much all the equipment and stuff. Yeah, oh yeah, Anna is right. There's it's an app. You can also get I think you can get it for Windows. I don't know if you make it for Mac, but they also make it like I know they make it for iOS. I'm assuming they also make it for Android. But there's a phone app too you can use to like build your armies in. I don't know if they do it for Age of Sigmar yet. That's a good question, but I know they do it for 40K and a bunch of other, bolt action. A lot of different sets are designed to work with Battlescribe. Battlescribe's a kind of a nice little program. Can't go wrong with Fire Warriors. I think you need a lot of them anyway, so at least. So definitely. When playing Song of Blades and Heroes, can you mix the other books from the system, or will that make it too hard? You kind of can. It depends on the system, like. For those of you who are not familiar with it, Song of Blades and Heroes is it's not a free downloadable, but it's a PDF you can get for I think it's like $8. You can also get a print on demand version for maybe 15. But it's a relatively simple fantasy skirmish game that uses a very kind of elegant yet simple dice system, and it's a great little game. It's great for teaching new players. I go to conventions and I run it because you can get card players, board gamers, RPGers, whatever. Sit them down. There's a whole bunch of models on the table. You teach it, and they pick it up super quick. So it's great. It's written by an Italian guy whose name is Andrea Sfagoli, which I always mispronounce. Seriously, with the phone, I don't even know what that's. So, but it's a great game, and he has made bunches of different versions. So he's made there's the basic fantasy one, but then he also made kind of a modern / sci-fi version, which is called Flying Lead. There's a version about vampires and werewolves and stuff like that, which is called Fear and Faith. There's a lot of different ones, so you can mix some of those things together, and it's kind of modular that way. So let's see here. I go to Salute each year with my son, and I love it. I've just signed up for a boot camp. Traveling for games is fun. Do you find that part of our love for the hobby is that it isn't that popular? Yeah, that's a good question. If it was really popular and everybody was doing it, would we, as a group of people who do currently like it as much? I think that with comic books getting a lot more popular through comic book movies, there are certain comic book aficionados, old school comic book fans who are like, I don't really dig that all of a sudden everybody is playing in my pool. I personally believe in being inclusive. So if I was a comic book fan for a long time, and then these Marvel movies and DC movies came along, and all of a sudden I was everybody was interested in Batman and Superman and all that, and Iron Man. I would see that as just being great. We get more people, more people in the hobby, more attention. It causes there to be more content and whatever, and yeah, I mean it works out. So I'm not against that. I'm not a gatekeeper in any way. So I'm it'd be great to have more people into tabletop wargaming. Traveling for that stuff, I love to go to Adepticon down in Chicago. That's always in the spring, very early spring, and I love. I mean, Adepticon is my favorite convention. I go to Gen Con. The Gen Con is humongous, but I like Adepticon better actually because it's actually not as humongous and it's super focused on just tabletop wargaming, whereas Gen Con is board games and Magic the Gathering and RPGs and everything. So. Have you been watching the Age of Sigmar tourney on Warhammer TV this weekend? No, I haven't. Some other people mentioned it before, but I haven't been watching it, so yeah. Douglas says, Beasts of War Boot Camp, Walking Dead miniatures game in November. I just saw a little ad they did for it on their channel. I think those boot camp things that they're doing are brilliant. Basically, for those of you who haven't seen it, Beasts of War does these boot camps. They did one for Bolt Action. I think they did one for Infinity. Now they're doing one for the Walking Dead miniatures game that Mantic is doing. What they do is you pay this fee, and then you come there, and then you get the models. You put the models together, all that kind of stuff. You play games. You learn how to play the games. You do all this stuff, but you're there for I think it's 3 days. I think it's Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. And you stay over Friday night, and you stay over Saturday night. And then, in the evening, after you guys are everybody goes to the pub, and they get together and then they hang out, and then they're kind of hungover on Saturday, and they come back and they play, and so it's a whole kind of it's not a convention, but it's boot camp is the perfect word for it, and it sounds really cool. I don't know how much it costs. Obviously, you got to be somewhere near Northern Ireland because that's where they're based out of. But it's a neat I don't know. I think it's a neat thing. I would love to see more people do that around here. I think that'd be kind of cool. So yeah. Do you have a mini range that you would suggest for the Shadowrun game? I'm looking at some Infinity and Reaper minis myself. For like the Shadowrun, like if you're going to use them in the, I'm assuming the RPG. Yeah, that's a good question. You know, Infinity stuff would probably not be too bad. I could see some Reaper stuff could work out well. There's like some Nova Corp, like security guys and things like that I've seen before. I know that those are would work out well in the Shadowrun. I played Shadowrun for a little while in college, actually. We used to play like every Sunday night, and that was a lot of fun. But that was years and years and years ago. So yeah, I know a little bit about it. I like the look of a lot of the Reaper minis, but their smaller parts tend to be too bendy. It's true, especially the Reaper bones. If you get the metal Reaper, they're not so bad because you can bend them back really easily. But the plastic bones models have a tendency to be very bendy, especially if they have very small parts. So that does make things a little difficult. Let's see here. Douglas says the author of Frostgrave was kind enough to respond to a message I sent him on Facebook. For that reason alone, I think he's awesome. I got to talk to him, actually, at Adepticon this year, because they had a booth there, and he was there. So, yeah, I got to talk to him for a little while. And, again, Frostgrave is another game that I really enjoy, so I got to talk to him about that, which was cool. He was a very nice guy. Let's see here. Josh says, I love Adepticon so much. I usually run events, but this year I'm looking to do some seminars and maybe some fun play. Yeah, Adepticon, again, for those of you that don't know, Adepticon is a tabletop wargaming convention in the Chicago area. It's technically in Schaumburg, which is northwest of Chicago. And it happens, this year it's like late March. And it's this great convention. It's usually about 3,500 people. It's just tabletop wargaming for the most part. And it's Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. It's a longer convention, but it's great. They have the Crystal Brush painting competition there. Best in show for that wins 10 grand. You know, the old Golden Demon contest that Games Workshop used to run. The best in show was you got a sword, which is great. I mean, it's still best in show, but 10 grand really brings out the pros. I mean, like hardcore. So that's really cool. Yeah, Adepticon's my favorite. And it's not that far from where I live. Like I said, it's about 3 hours away from where I live, so that's nice. Let's see. Did you see the app Song of Blades and Heroes? Oh, there's an app for it? No, I should look for that. No. I know you can build your warband. There's a thing on the web that was like a web-based one, but I didn't know if there was an app for it yet. I should take a look at that. That's interesting. Matthew says that Shadowrun 2nd Edition was his jam. Yeah, I think that's about roughly where we were playing as well. 2nd or 3rd, I think. 2nd, I think. I know it's on like 5th now, I think. So, yeah. What do you think of 3D printed minis? Like, if you're going to copy somebody's minis, like if someone's going to scan like a, what do you call it? Like a dreadnought from like, 40K and then print out their own just because they don't want to pay for it, that I'm not cool with because that seems just like a copyright infringement thing. Like if you make your own dreadnought completely kind of and you print it out and make it because you want it to look different and stuff like that, cool. But if you just scan one, like do a 3D scan just because you don't want to buy one from Games Workshop, I'm not a big fan of that. That all being said, I own a very small 3D printer. The quality's not there yet. Nowhere near. I was just actually having a conversation about this at the game store yesterday. It's nowhere near yet. Every once in a while, some people will post pictures of, oh, this is a 3D model or a 3D printed, miniature I made, and they always look. They have those stripes that go through them. You know what I mean? And it's very difficult. They don't. Now for terrain, you can do some cool terrain with them, which is one of the reasons I bought mine, is because I wanted to build cool sci-fi terrain with it. So that looks cool. And that can be neat, but for actually like a model who's only yay big, it's very difficult, I think, at this point. So, yeah, it's coming, certainly, but right now, yeah. Other questions. Ironwind Metals does a Shadowrun range. Oh, yeah. No, yeah, they did do Shadowrun guides for quite some time, so you might look on eBay for that kind of stuff. But, yeah, Ironwind, they're a good one. I never got to hang out and drink at the bar in the real boot camp. I think I got gypped. I think that real boot camp, like when you go to the army or whatever, is not the same. Pretty sure that is not the same as Beasts of War boot camp. Because, yeah, you're right. You don't get to go to the pub at least 2 or 3 times. That's not how it understands. I was not in the military, but I've been told that that's not the way it works. How can I find a security job like the one you had? That's a good question. I kind of fell into it because I knew a guy, and he was like, hey, we're hiring. And so I said, okay. And so, yeah, but that's, yeah. The Seeking one says, Adepticon is fantastic. Went there once in 2011. Traveled all the way from Russia. It was absolutely worth it. Wow, from Russia. That's cool. I've met people there from England. That's where I originally met Andy 2D6. If you've watched any of his stuff on Age of Sigmar, Andy 2D6, I met him not last year, but the 2 previous years he was there. The Wargamer Viking, a.k.a. Spud, he was there not last year, not the year before, 2 years? Yeah, a while back. And a lot of other people. The guys from the Bad Dice podcast, I think I met there one time. At least one of them I talked to. This is before I knew about the Bad Dice podcast. So, yeah, you get people that do come over from overseas, and it's cool because it is a really great convention. It's a lot of fun, and I feel very glad that I live so close to it that it's very easy for me to get to. Ronan asks, is Adepticon similar to Gen Con? Well, it's similar in that it's a convention. It's nowhere near similar in size, nor in scope. Gen Con is about 60,000 people over 4 days, and Adepticon's about 3,000, maybe 4,000 tops. Adepticon is just about tabletop wargaming, so miniatures, that kind of stuff, whereas Gen Con is about the entire scope of tabletop gaming, from role-playing to card gaming to all that stuff, plus also like anime and cosplay. It's been getting really big into cosplay in Gen Con lately, so, there's almost none of that happening at Adepticon. And Adepticon doesn't have, Matt's right, Adepticon does not have a huge sales floor. Like, Gen Con has this humongous dealer room, which is like the biggest part, kind of that's the big draw. Whereas Adepticon, it's the gaming and the getting together and the tournaments and the demos and stuff like that. But there is still a vendor area. But the thing that's cool about it is that the vendors are basically all pretty much just selling stuff to aim towards miniatures people. So you're not, walking past, people selling DVDs and walking past people selling stuffed animals and stuff like that. It's just like, oh, this is a guy makes his own terrain and it's really cool, or this company does this, or oh, here's Privateer Press, or Cool Mini or Not, or whatever. So yeah, it's I like that convention so much. It's one of my favorite. The boot camp is a reasonable price regarding full board and the game and the entertainment and experience that you get for it. It will cost me a little bit to get there, but it's it's likely to be a one-off. Yeah, from what I understand, yeah. Boot camp is cool, and I would, if I was living closer, I would probably try to give it a try to get over there. But it would be quite expensive for me to fly over, I think. But eventually, my wife and I would like to take a trip overseas. So maybe at some point I'll get to stop by and say hi, which would be kind of cool. I don't know that I'd be able to make a boot camp, but I could maybe stop by and say hi. So that'd be cool. Anyway, at this point, I think it is now time for me to start to talk about the subject of today's show, since I'm a little bit late on that, actually, and I apologize. I'm going to move these guys over here. So these are, and you're going to see them from above, which is going to be kind of weird, but there it is. So these are my Wight Kings. Now, this is the Wight King with Baleful Tomb Blade. That's his Baleful Tomb Blade, or whatever. But that's how I painted him. So I decided to use very muted colors. I really wanted to make him I didn't want to use bright colors, no bright greens, no bright reds, no bright purples, anything like that. I wanted very muted. I mean, he's basically, for lack of a better term, he's a lich. You know what I mean? He's really crazy old to the point where he's basically undead. And so he's not been going out to the mall to get new clothes every decade or whatever. He's been, this stuff probably had some color to it back in the day, but it doesn't much anymore. So that's kind of what I did with this guy. This is a great model. He's very simple and easy to build, but it's a really cool model. Now, I did, if you'll notice here, there we go. I used my green stuff technique, because otherwise this cloak would be completely smooth, because he's a plastic miniature. So he's got this completely smooth cloak, which just does not look right for something that's undead. They're not, going to the laundromat. So I decided to use liquid green stuff, which is made by Games Workshop, and I used a toothpick, cocktail stick, and I just cut the point off so that it was just like the regular flatness, just the regular width of the cocktail stick, and I would dab it in the green stuff, and then I would dab it on his thing, and then just kind of dab to get that sort of speckly kind of textured look. Because it just makes it a lot easier to paint too, because you can dry brush and put a lot of stuff in there. And as I'm looking at this right now on the screen, he is a slight bit more colorful. Like his cloak is a bit greenish, whereas you're not maybe seeing that as much here. But you can see like it's blowing in the wind, you know, and you can see like it's kind of cool the way it works that way. His metallics are all basically very... I've put washes on all of his metallics so they don't look very silvery. They have a tendency to look more sepia or brown, like they're corroded or whatever. He's got this weird skull on his belt. It's like in his armpit for some reason. You can kind of see it down there. I don't know why he's got that weird skull in there. Maybe that was a friend of his. I have no idea. But so yeah, he's got that weird skull on his belt. He's got these weird kind of bat wings around his waist. You can kind of see those. Those are leftovers maybe that he was going to eat. I don't know. If he's a big skeleton guy, I don't think he eats anymore. There's another, you can kind of see down there, there's another skull down by his feet. And he's kind of standing. He's got like one foot up on a gravestone. But it's just a great model. I really dig him. He was a lot of fun to paint. And I did a lot of washes and a lot of that kind of stuff to kind of give him a real darker, you know, he's not super high contrast because I generally don't paint that way. I used a lot of cork and I used a lot of kitty litter and then my baking soda on the base. Now he's not completely finished because I want to varnish him, and then once he's varnished, I'm going to put a little bit of like dead grass, kind of little just sprigs, little spritzes of dead grass kind of around the base in places. So you don't want to put that static grass stuff on until after you do the varnish. If you put it on and then varnish over the top of it, you'll make it like stick together and look weird. So that's why I'm not doing that yet. So that's pretty much where this guy's at. He is the Wight King with baleful tomb blade, which I guess it's baleful. It's got like cool bat wings on the hilt and all that stuff, and a skull. You know, you got to have skulls. So yeah, that's kind of where he's at. He's got this cool crown, which again is just a lot of sepia washes over like a metallic silver, and you just kind of go from there, and it works out pretty well that way. And it makes it look kind of corroded and, you know, tarnished. Again, he's not hanging out in the tombs polishing all of his stuff, so you know, that's kind of how that works. And then this guy is also a tomb, or a Wight King. But now the trick is that he's also... So this model was for quite some time referred to as Krell, the Lord of Undeath. Now if you look in the app, let's say, for Age of Sigmar, there is a Krell, Lord of Undeath, whatever, a war scroll for him. The trick is that his war scroll... When they made points, they didn't give him points. They made another Wight King war scroll called Wight King with Black Axe, hence this axe here, which is not exactly black. I made it a little dark, but I didn't make it black. But that one has points. Krell, Lord of Undeath, does not. And I don't know why they didn't give him points. So if I want to run him in points games, I have to run him as basically just Wight King with Black Axe, as opposed to Krell, Lord of Undeath. The stats between the two, the other guy down here and this guy, as far as points are concerned, they're the exact same amount of points. But they do have slightly different you know, abilities and things like that. This model is Finecast. I bought this model on eBay, and it said that it was plastic. And then when I received it, it was actually Finecast. So I was a little bummed about that. The axe that you see here, that is not the standard axe that this model comes with. He comes with this weird two-headed axe, which was all bent and screwed up because it was Finecast, and that's the way it works. So this axe, actually, I got it off of the Putrid Blight Kings, the box set for the Putrid Blight Kings. It's an axe that was left over that I didn't use on one of my Blight Kings, and the way that his handle kind of just has that built-in curve to it, I was able to stick this part onto like just above his hand, like I cut off, and it just makes the curve look right. So it just looks like it has this weird curved kind of like haft to the axe, and then it's got the neat head, which is a very specific kind of interesting look. And I just think it worked out really, really well. So again, this guy has got a very textured cloak. Again, liquid green stuff. I mean, the furry thing was already there. That was already on there. But the texture of the cloak is partially liquid green stuff, and also partially because the person who painted it, I don't know what the heck they used, but no matter what I did to it to try to strip the paint off, I couldn't get it all off. So there's probably some texture just from the leftover older paint. I did not want to hit it with some really hard stuff because it's Finecast, and I was concerned about melting the model. You know, if I was to throw in like brake fluid or any of those other kind of really hardcore sort of things, isopropyl alcohol, I don't know what isopropyl alcohol is going to do to a model that is made out of Finecast, and I didn't want to find out with this guy. So yeah, basically I just kind of stripped him enough, and then I thought, well, he's death. Just like Nurgle. If your elfin guys are all beat up and textured and weird looking, then that doesn't make sense, because elves are very smooth and clean all the time. But if you're Nurgle or Death and you're like smooth and clean, that doesn't make sense either. So Nurgle, Death, any kind of armies like that, you can get away with having some definite like messed up weird textures and things like that. I did a bunch of layering with that kind of wolf pelt thing. If you watch Sam's video about how to paint fur, I took a lot of tips from that, and it worked out pretty well. So again, he's a little bit more colorful in real life. This camera has maybe got the saturation dialed down a bit. His armor is kind of a reddish purple, like the main armor part. His cloak is very gray. Like I said, that the axe head there is dark, but it's called the black axe, but it's not that black actually. His helmet's metallic. He's got that weird, you know, brush ruffle thing going on top of it, you know, like a mohawk. He's got some extra skulls that he's been keeping up there for later, I guess for lunch maybe. He's got a skull on the base. That one I just added in. That one is a Secret Weapon Miniatures little tiny resin skull from their bag of skulls. There's a lot of cork going on down there in the base, and a little bit of, what do you call it? Again, baking soda with CA glue, some kitty litter. I just grabbed an extra old like skeleton spear from the Skeleton Warriors and just stuck it in there in the ground like it's leftover, you know, junk from the battlefield. But yeah, so he's got some kind of cool stuff going on. I like him. Again, I'm going to need to put some dead grass, just little spots of dead grass on the base after I do the varnish, because that's pretty important. So yeah, I liked doing the bone stuff, like the horns and everything like that. That, you know, that big weird shoulder pad skull. I don't know if we can get it to focus into that close or not. Probably not. But yeah, all of this stuff is a lot of fun to play with, and he was a lot of fun to model. I actually did do some green stuff here, so you'll notice here there's like a wrapping, like a, you know, around the haft or whatever of the axe. Okay, well, there was none of that below his hand, because I cut the old axe off right above this hand right here. From there up, I cut off that axe, so I had to do some green stuff to make it look like he was holding on to the wrapping, and it wasn't just like, it didn't just stop at his hand. It's not perfect, but it's not bad. So I just put some green stuff on there, did a little bit of modeling, and tried to make it look like he had extended that wrapping down further. It's not as good as the stuff above it, but it's not bad. If I hadn't told you, you might not have noticed. So there's that. So don't tell anybody. But anyway, yeah. So that's this guy who is Tomb King. No. Wight King with Black Axe. The other guy is Wight King with Baleful Tomb Blade, and that kind of stuff. But this guy is technically, really, the original model was Krell, Lord of Undeath. So these are the cool models that are going to be HQ units in my Death Army, and which I'm looking forward to. We can go over a little bit. We can go over some of their stats. Hey, check that stuff out. So this is the base Wight King, and you see the Baleful Tomb Blade there. So his circle is 5 wounds, 4 movement, 4 up save, and 10 bravery. His blade has got a 1-inch reach. It's got 4 attacks, 3 to hit, 3 to wound, -1 rend, and it's got 1 damage. You can technically have them on some sort of skeletal steed, though I've never even seen that model, so I don't know. But if you did, they have their own stats as well. You can also give this model an Infernal Standard, which is a little bit like the standard that thing that the Khorne Bloodborne puts down. He has that big, huge banner, kind of, that's got the big, what do you call it? It's got a big Khorne symbol, and he puts it down on the ground, and then it gives like a special effect for like 18 inches or whatever. This is kind of the same kind of deal. A Wight King with an Infernal Standard has the totem keyword. Roll a die. Each time the death model from your army is slain within 9 inches of an Infernal Standard. On a 6, the magic of the Infernal Standard sustains that warrior, and the wound that slew him is ignored. In your hero phase, a Wight King can plant the standard, and if he does so, you cannot move him until your next hero phase, but until then, the Infernal Standard's influence is extended to 18 inches. So I'm actually thinking about modeling a special little extra standard, which I'll just carry with him to show whether I'm using it or not. I didn't want to magnetize anything like that, but they'll just be like that. He also has a beheading strike with that weapon. If the wound roll for an attack made with a baleful tomb blade is 6 or more, that attack inflicts D3 damage rather than 1. And then he also has an ancient shield. This particular model does have the ancient shield, the guy with the sword, obviously. A Wight King with an ancient shield has a save of 3+ instead of 4+, so he's pretty decent. So yeah, like I said, I'm going to probably build one of those Infernal Standards at one point just to go that direction. But that's pretty much him in a nutshell. And like I said, he's the same points as the other guy with the black axe, but I can't show you the PDF because I can't find the PDF anywhere. But it's in here. It's in the app. So I'll just go over it again here if I can find it. Profiles. Okay, yeah, so the Wight King with Black Axe, by the way, they're both 120 points. So the guy with the Tomb Blade and the guy with the Black Axe, same point cost. But the guy with the Black Axe, and in the picture they show this model, they show Krell there. So again, same circle stats, 4-inch move, 5 wounds, 4 up save, and a 10 bravery. The Black Axe has got a range of 1. It's got 3 attacks instead of 4, 3 up to hit, 3 up to wound, -1 to rend, but it's automatically a D3 damage, which is sort of cool. And then, so the Black Axe, this is interesting. So you roll a die at the end of combat phase for each model that this Wight King wounded but did not slay. If the result is greater than the number of wounds that model has remaining, it is slain. So if you did some damage to a model and he's got 1 wound left, at the end of the combat phase, you roll a die for that guy, and if you can roll above a 1, he just dies. So it's almost like it's poisoned, you know what I mean? So that's really kind of cool. So you could do some damage to a model. You could have some model that's maybe got 5 wounds left out of a big model, and if you're lucky enough to roll a 6, that guy dies. So that's kind of a neat stat for the Black Axe. He also has something called Barrow or Barrow armor. These ancient suits of armor are magically enchanted to turn aside the most grievous of attacks, have any wounds or mortal wounds inflicted on this Wight King, rounding fractions up. So that's pretty cool too, and he's the same points as the other guy. Plus, this one's got a command ability. The other guy did not have a command ability. His command ability is Lord of Bones. If a Wight King uses this ability, pick 1 Death Rattle unit within 18 inches. All models in that unit make 1 extra attack with each of their weapons until your next hero phase. So the synergy that I'm seeing in my relatively limited amount of strategy knowledge is that I can put him in the army, and if I can keep him near my skeletons, specifically my skeleton archers, they'll get to shoot twice in a turn instead of just once. So that could be big, especially if there's a unit of 20 of them. You shoot 40 arrows at something, even though it's not great stats to hit, it should do something. So that's kind of, I think, the interesting thing that I'm looking to play them, because I've also got a Necromancer who's also got an ability. It's not a command ability, it's just a regular ability, or is it a wizard ability? I don't remember. But I'm looking to do some synergies. I'm starting to learn a little bit of strategy, and I'm kind of looking into getting some of that stuff. So Stuart says, check for Wight King on Skeletal Steed at the GW store. Oh yeah, I hadn't even thought of that. So I'll have to do that and take a look at it. David says, I had my Wight King hold off an entire unit of Stormcast on his own. They are solid heroes. Excellent. That sounds awesome. I'm looking forward to using him for that. David says, Dat Axe. That is a fun axe. I did enjoy the way it worked together. Let's see here. So I missed a whole bunch of talk while I was doing all that. I apologize, but I hope that you guys enjoyed that stuff there with the Wight King. Let's see here. Torch says, you make me want to start painting, man. Looks great. Well, thank you. It's fun stuff to do, and yeah, I don't know. A big thing about it really for me is that I really enjoy the time. I listen to audiobooks or podcasts, and I paint, and it's relaxing, and it's fun. I enjoy it. Simon says, brake fluid is nice, but I use the cheapest organic cleaner I can find. Cheaper the better. But it did make one of my Finecast guys gooey. I was concerned about that with the guy with the axe. Yeah, I was thinking anything I use beyond like Simple Green or Super Clean or one of those kind of things, I'm just concerned it's going to make them squishy, and I don't want to have a squishy guy. So, but yeah, a lot of people keep telling me about Dettol, but I don't know if I can get it in America. I'll have to look around. Yeah. So anyway, what else have we got here? It looks like there was some message deletion, which means Matt's helping out, and he's a good guy. We like him for that. Ranged weapons are awesome in Sigmar. Yes. They're also a little few and far between. You know, like my Nurgle army has very little in the way of range weapons, and so the thing that's neat about range weapons in Sigmar is that you can get into regular combat, and even though you're in hand-to-hand combat, you can still use your range weapons in the same. So it's almost like you get to attack twice to some degree. So that's kind of a big deal. Plus, you could be having a close combat fight with somebody here, and if your guy has range attack as well, they can shoot somebody else outside of combat. You can also shoot into combat. So range is kind of key. So trying to find decent range units is really helpful, which is why I decided to go with having my skeleton archers. I looked all over, and I was like thinking I was going to have to build some stuff, and then a friend of mine's like, oh, I've got these skeleton archers that are built and primed black, and they're on square bases, and I bought them from him, and I'm going to be putting them on rounds, so I'm looking forward to that. Stuart asks, are the Battletome books worth buying? I bought that Sylvaneth Start Collecting box, and yeah, singular PDFs downloaded from GW will get annoying quickly, I think. Here's my opinion. The hardcover ones that are about specific sub-factions, they seem to be worth it, but they're also more expensive. Like the Sylvaneth one is like, I don't know, like $50, I think. Ironjaw's one is about the same. So the ones that are about specific, they come with like formations, they come with, or battle battalion formations or whatever they're called, they come with extra stuff inside. There's extra stuff besides just, here's the war scrolls. The general ones, like the Death one or the Chaos one that are soft cover and quite a bit less expensive, those are just the war scrolls. There's like no fluff, there's no extra stuff. It's just basically, hey, we reprinted all the war scrolls, here you go. So you could just use it on your phone, you could use it on an iPad or whatever sort of tablet, you could print them out, like I have a tendency to. But the books themselves, those books, the floppy ones, I don't think are super useful, but you know, they're just basically reprints of that stuff. So yeah, but the ones that are hardcover, about the Sylvaneth, the Ironjaws, the Greenskins, the Stormcast, those seem to be more useful because they have stuff built into the book, which is kind of nice. Does Adam mean the normal Age of Sigmar app or a special one? It's just the normal Age of Sigmar app. If you just do a search on the App Store, Google Play Store, whatever you call it, for Age of Sigmar, you should find the app. It's free, and it has all the war scrolls and all that stuff in it. You can mark things as like, I have these guys and I have these guys, so you don't have to scroll through the entire list of stuff. You can just go, show me the guys I have, and then you can see all the stats and information. It's kind of nice that way. There are in-app purchases if you want to buy like the if you want to buy like any of the books that they sell and have them through the app, you could do that. You know, it's slightly cheaper than the hardcover, or hard copy. But yeah, that's what it's in. If you run a skeleton unit of over 30, you can get 90 attacks. Then slap a Wight King within a few inches, and they're hitting on 3+. Yeah, there's a lot of synergies you can put together, but you got to run a unit of 30 to get to each at that level. But yeah, you can do it. I don't know how exactly you get a unit of 30 to go up against. Like, I guess against another big unit you could do that, but against something small, you're just going to get to the point where they're not going to be able to reach it anymore. Like, you could wrap completely around a unit and then, like, not. Those guys in the back can't actually do their thing. But yeah. Alexander says, did you get a chance to check out the new White Dwarf? What do you think of it? I did not get a chance to see it yet, sadly. Like I said, I said this earlier to some people in the chat, my local shop hasn't gotten a copy of it yet, so I haven't got a chance to look at it. But I'm kind of interested to see how it goes. There is a new PDF on the GW website for the Wight King with Baleful Tomb Blade. He also has the same command abilities that do with the axe. No kidding, but it's not in the app. I'll have to look that one up. Huh. As I thought I got that PDF for the Baleful Tomb Blade guy right off of the website, the GW website today, I think, but I'll double check. I can also recommend the Skeleton Archers from Kings of War if you don't find the Tomb King Archers. They don't look so Egyptian. The Tomb King Archers don't, if you paint them right, they don't look that Egyptian. Like, they're not covered in, those weird helmets and stuff like that. They're okay, but they do look a little Egyptian. If you start painting with like brass or gold, they'll look very Egyptian. But if you don't, I think you can. I think I'll be able to pull it off. I looked a little bit at the Kings of War skeleton archers, and they're kind of expensive, from what I could tell. So I was like, well, I was on the fence, and then this friend of mine was like, hey, I've got a bunch of used ones if you want to buy them from me, and so I did, and it worked out awesome. So yeah. Some factions in the General's Handbook are quite desolate. Just a handful of characters. Do you think GW is going to add to their rosters, or what's the point of having only like 2 units in Shadow Blood? Shadow something. Shadow Blade? And it just ended there. Sorry. Yeah, I don't know. It'd be interesting to see if they're going to do that or not. You know what I mean? It'd be interesting to see if they're going to add to those things. I mean, a lot of people are wondering, like, well, are they going to add free peoples, and like survivors basically, or whatever, after all of the end times. It'll be interesting to see. Like right now, they're just basically seemingly working on, Sylvaneth was a new thing, the Iron Jaws, Fire Slayers, a lot of those different things. So that's kind of cool. They haven't done really well. They've done a little bit of it. There's like a couple like sort of new models for Death. There was like the Vargeists, I think. They made a box that you could build them like 3 different ways, whereas they used to be only maybe 2 different ways or whatever. But so, they've done a little bit of that, but they haven't made, big stuff yet. So, Kings of War Skeleton Horde is a good value for 40 minis. For the regular skeletons, yeah, Kings of War does really well, but skeleton archers are just hard to find in general. So, yeah, but if you just want to have regular skeletons, the Kings of War ones are really nice. They do good work with that. So, let's see here. Any thought on the new Citadel figure case? I'm about to buy one. I might not know which one you're talking about. There's the kind that they came out with were the hard cases, and they had the foam in them that had the sort of zigzag foam in it. I think that's kind of neat because you can put things together in a lot of different ways, and it's not like a lot of other foams where like you just have this hole and you can fit a guy in there, and if the guy doesn't fit, well, it's too bad. But I haven't really ever bought any of the actual GW cases. I don't think I've ever bought a GW case, actually. I've kicked around, like, basically giving it more stuff. Uh-oh, what happened? Dropped frames. Are we still... How are we going? Anything? Stream stopped. Are we back yet? It says it's good. Oh, there we are. We're back. Okay. I don't know what happened there, but it has to happen nearly every time. All right. I think we're back. It must have just been a hiccup with my cable company, which is awesome. The new White Dwarf isn't actually that bad, says Stuart. I was surprised. The free model is awesome. Well, I mean, I don't think we're going to get the free model every time, obviously. But from what I understand, they are trying to make it more useful and not just like basically a catalog. So I think that's probably smart on their part. Let's see here. The Wargames Foundry skeletons need to return. Those are great buy for skeletons for bits. Like, I tried to build one of the 4, as I own a box of those Wargames Foundry skeletons, and I tried to build one like to use as an actual model, and they're really, really skinny and really, really flimsy. So they don't work well as an actual gaming model. What I use them for all the time is when I want to have skeleton bits or bones or whatever like that on the bases of other models, especially big ones. They work great for just like, well, I need a rib cage and a skull and an arm, and it's going to be on top of this pile of, whatever. And so they work great for that. But for actually trying to build a model that you're going to pick up and move around and things like that, they are so skinny and flimsy. They're to scale, they look right. Like a normal GW skeleton, like if we were built like normal GW skeletons, our bones would all be like this big around, and that's not helpful. But yeah, that's the difference. So if you could still find them someplace, I don't even know if they make them anymore, but if you could find them, they're great for fleshing out your bases, but for actually trying to use them as gaming miniatures, they're super, super, super flimsy. So yeah. Let's see here. Have you seen the new Army Painter Kings of War box sets? 10 paints specific to a faction. I think I'll get the Dwarf one. I think it's cool that they're working with Army Painter. I like to see that Army Painter is working with Mantic and go in that direction. I don't have a lot of Army Painter paints. I have some of their washes. I bought a set of their washes a while back, which I like. They're a lot thicker. They're a little more like glazes. They're a lot thicker than the GW ones, but they are nice. I do like them. You kind of have to get the hang of them, but they're nice. They come in dropper bottles, which for me, that's the one thing I don't like in dropper bottles is washes, because I like to just be able to dip my brush into the pot and then put the wash on. So with this, I have to like transfer some of it into like a little something and then dip into my brush. So that's the one thing that I don't like about dropper bottles for washes. For regular paints, I like dropper bottles just fine. KR multi-case is also a good case. If you guys are looking for cases, KR multi-case is nice. They're usually very hard side, like metallic type cases with soft foam on the inside. Battle foam is a little bit harder foam on the inside, and then they're not exactly soft-sided cases, but they are like there's slices of like plastic inside sandwiched in between the nylon, so they have a very good rigid structure, but they're sort of still a bit flexible. There's a bunch of other companies out there that make different cases as well. So let's see here. New White Dwarf brought back Tale of Four Gamers. Really itching to do that with some friends. Yeah, no, I've heard about that, and I think that's cool. I'm glad that they're bringing some of that stuff back. I mean, I think they finally are just responding to people saying, I don't buy White Dwarf anymore because it's just a catalog. You know what I mean? So, Army Painted is the new paint line coming in February. Oh, that'll be interesting, yeah. The Wargames Factory skeletons are not brittle, though. They are more durable than you're giving credit. I mean, I'm not saying that they're brittle. They're very thin, so whenever you pick them up, they have a tendency to flex almost a little bit, and because they're so thin. And I wasn't going to build an entire army of them. I built one, and I was like, it seemed very delicate, and so then that's when I moved back to just doing the regular Games Workshop ones. Plus, the Wargames Factory ones, I don't think are in production anymore because Wargames Factory got bought by Warlord or somebody. It's a whole thing. So they're hard to find, from what I understand. Let's see. Also, just for a few minis, pistol cases are nice. Yeah, when I talked a little bit about that small orc army that I've got that a friend gave me, it was a 400 point like combat patrol size, and it's in a pistol case from like Walmart or whatever, and that worked out nicely for the because it's just basically like a foam clamshell kind of a thing, but it works out well. Bill says, my shop owner has the opinion that Games Workshop could be in the new monthly magazine. Always insert something in it. Doesn't need to always be a mini, but a poster or something else would be cool. I mean, I don't know what the new... Does anybody know what the new White Dwarf costs? Because I don't know what the cost is. So, I mean, I'm sure that the cost would be higher if there was always something included. But, I mean, yeah, you're right. I mean, even like a poster. I've got friends who've still got old White Dwarf posters on the wall, in their game room, so yeah, I could see them doing something like that as a giveaway to get people interested, get people buying. Yeah, it doesn't always have to be a miniature. You're right. Let's see here. From what I've seen, they're also having trouble seeing it in stock. 2 stores here didn't have them. The GW store itself only had 1 left. The guy there said he was having trouble keeping stock. Well, maybe collectors could be trying to get it. The new White Dwarf. That's a possibility. I could see that. Like $9 US. Okay, that's how much the new White Dwarf costs. That's it's not terrible. I don't know how thick it is, but it'll be interesting. What do you think of what Games Workshop is doing with the update to the Blood Angels and stuff? I don't really know anything about it. I just recently heard that there was some sort of rules update for Blood Angels. It's probably not. Is it a new codex? I don't know. If it's just like an add-on like PDF, I honestly think that they should maybe do that more frequently. You know what I mean? Like when they make a codex that's sort of screwed up, then they should maybe think about putting out a new a PDF to update it a little bit more quickly than they used to. So yeah, that wouldn't be a bad idea. Chaos could use an update, from what I understand. Grey Knights. There's a guy I know who's a Grey Knights player who's very angry about the new book, and that came out probably like a year or 2 ago at this point now, not being that new. But yeah, so that's something to think about too, you know what I mean? It's the Codex plus units from the Angel's Blade book. I'm not familiar with that, sorry. So yeah, I mean, I haven't been keeping up much with 40K, I gotta be honest with you. I've got a friend who's a Blood Angels... Well, I was going to say he's a Blood Angels player, but I don't know that he's ever played. He's a collector. He's been slowly building for years. He's had Sam paint some of his stuff. He's paid Sam to paint some of his stuff, and it looks amazing. But like his normal, just like regular troops, like he's like, oh, I'm going to paint my regular troops myself, and it's been years now, so he hasn't. You know, but eventually someday he'll have a really great looking Blood Angels army, maybe in another 20 years. So yeah, but he keeps some of that stuff and keeps an eye on that. Come back to 40K, Adam. Come back. Yeah, I'm not seeing it. You know, I told a friend of mine, my friend Kevin, who's a store owner. I said if they made like an Age of Sigmar type version of 40K, then I could maybe see myself coming back to Adeptus Mechanicus or Scutari or something like that, because I think those models are really kind of interesting and cool and different. When I did the video a while back about why Age of Sigmar is a good thing, a lot of people in the comments said, well, they should have just made Age of Sigmar as a third, you know, product line, really, because you got your 40K, which was making all the money, and then you got your Fantasy, which was like 17% or whatever of their overall revenue, so it wasn't doing very well. And so they decided to get rid of Fantasy and put in Age of Sigmar to bring in new players. And a lot of people were like, well, why didn't they just bring in Age of Sigmar as a simpler version of Fantasy to bring in new players? And I kept saying it's because since they weren't doing real well overall, you can't just keep adding more lines. It just fractures your... It's just... When money's not great necessarily for the company and sales are flat, you don't then start another, you know, sales vertical. You decide, all right, we've got to try to pare things down and you know, save some money that way. That all being said, at this point, they could do that with 40K. They could make a simple add-on, not even an add-on. They could make an offshoot of 40K, which is what I was hoping Kill Team was going to be. But they could make like an Age of Sigmar type offshoot to 40K. So that there's still normal regular 40K for the people who love to play that in the tournaments, and that's, you know, it sells well and everything. But there's also like a very simplified version, or pretty simplified version, with maybe something like War Scrolls and like a small, you know, 4 to 6 page rule booklet or all that, that you would allow you to get into the game if you're interested, because a lot of people have gotten into, you know, Sigmar because they're like, I can see myself being able to do this easier. If you could do that with 40K, and then down the road you could decide, well, now I want to play real 40K and move forward. That I don't think would be a bad plan for them, but they decided to do Kill Team, which in my mind, you know, it's a great little box to buy if you want to buy those units, but you still have to play with the normal rules, and you'll probably, if you want to play any more beyond that, you're going to have to go out and get the codices and all that junk. So, yeah, I don't know. I think that it would be kind of cool if they would do it that way. So, yeah, from what Alexander, you're right. From what I hear, the new Kill Team rules are not very different. They're not. It's just basically a box that sells you some models, and then it's basically the regular rules. So, Reaper Skeleton Spearmen don't have armor. Huh. I don't think I've seen any of their Reaper Skeleton Spearmen. I should look into that. Mordheim rules were betaed in White Dwarf as well. Really? Well, that's kind of interesting. The White Dwarf still doesn't have the quality of hobby articles like they used to have, building terrain guides and whatnot, but it is leagues better than the weekly. I bet that the reason they don't have a lot of those articles anymore is because you can get so much of that stuff on the internet. You can look and just go find articles and find blogs and find videos like this, hopefully, where you can learn all that stuff. So they've got to try to come up with stuff that's very specific to them, because then it relates better to hopefully their readers. I think that's got to be the way it works. But yeah, back in the day, you know, if you wanted to learn how to make terrain, you had to read White Dwarf, because there was no other place to go look for that kind of stuff for the most part, except for maybe the local guys at your shop. Do I have an opinion on 30K? It seems cool. You know, it's not something I would go into particularly, but yeah, it seems interesting, and I'm glad that they've made the plastic units, you know, so people can get into it if they are interested. That's kind of cool. Let's see here. Jeffrey, Adam, why do you hate 40K? I don't hate it. I just don't want to play it right now because I don't like the rules. So yeah, I don't really hate much anything. I just don't like to play the rules. So you know, that's why I haven't been playing it a long time. Is this a community effort and everyone can do War Scrolls to help out? I don't know if it is, no. Alexander says, where is Krell? I was actually showing, well, he's not really Krell in this situation. He's a Wight King with Black Axe, according to the War Scroll, but I was showing him earlier, so you kind of missed him, but you can watch him later if you go back and watch the thing. Have you seen Professional Game Master Dungeon Master at a store? A professional? Like a person who gets paid to do that? No. I've never seen a person who gets paid to be a game master or a dungeon master. Yeah, I don't know that people would pay for that too much. I mean, there are some people who are super good at it and they probably should get paid for it, but I don't know that there's anybody necessarily who's going to get paid for that kind of stuff. Let's see here. Age of Emperor. Oh, that's that's. I don't know if they necessarily need to name it the same thing, but yeah. Are there any number on how many people actually play or collect Warhammer 40k Age of Sigmar? Not that I know of. Games Workshop maybe might have some of that information, but I don't. So I don't know how many people play. I don't know much about their sales other than like the stuff that they put into their public reports, because they're a publicly traded company. They have to put some stuff in those reports and things like that. So yeah. So one last thing I want to show off, actually, just kind of as a preview for next show, which is in 2 weeks, because it's the Every Other Sunday show. You'll see information on the Facebook and some of the social media. But in a couple of weeks, so I'm giving myself a painting challenge, okay? So the next show is 2 weeks from today, and when that show happens, I am going to show off some models that I'm going to show you right here that are started, not particularly, not too far started. But our moderator, Matt, he and Anton run a game company which I've talked about in some of my videos before, called Age, and it's post-apocalyptic skirmish. It's also an RPG as well. There's both rules in the instructions, or in the book. And so this is a unit of stakers. Okay, so these guys are kind of like homesteaders after the apocalypse, and I have built them. There's 4 of them, and they are for my staker force. Now you will notice that they are like black and white. So for those of you who haven't watched my underpainting video, I'm going to try to get these a little bit out of the way. What I've done here is I've built them, I've textured the bases, and then I have basically dusted them white from above with my airbrush. So what that does is it builds in the shadows, like the underparts, like underneath the arms there, and between the legs, and underneath the chin. You almost automatically get these shadows built in because I spray them from above with white, and it's like I'm adding light, hitting them from the sky, let's say. And so you get this black and white kind of model that you will then take, and then I will start using more washes and glazes as opposed to straight opaque paints to make the colors happen. So I'll start putting maybe brown for pants, and then I don't have to go through and try to blend, like wet blend, because the blend is already in here from the airbrushing. Okay, so if I just put a transparent color over the top of it, it goes from light brown to dark brown because it's actually covering white and then covering black. It looks as if I've done a lot more work than I have. That's kind of the trick with airbrushing. Okay, so these are models from the Age line. These are stakers. Age, last I heard, and Matt can back me up on this, you guys have like 120 different models in that line right now for all the different factions. So again, these are the stakers, and there's a lot of men and women and guns and post-apocalyptic shenanigans. This guy's got a hat that he's not wearing, so he's going to get a sunburn. This guy's got a cool staff. I might have missed some of the paint there. He's got a pistol and a holster on his shovel, which is cool. And you can see a bunch of his armor is made out of tire. So yeah, it's just, I'm really looking forward to painting these guys. And my painting challenge to myself is I'm going to paint them and then show them off in 2 weeks on the next show. So you can see now that this is where they're at. They are basically just been primed, dusted with light to highlight them. This guy's got a cool rifle. And when you see these guys next, they will be painted next week. So that's what we'll be doing. And we'll be talking a little bit with Matt probably about Age. And we're also, here's a special deal, is that there will be a coupon code next week. If you're watching the show, you'll get a coupon code, and then you'll be able to type it in, and you'll get a percentage off if you buy Age models, Age games, stuff like that, from their website. So that's pretty much what's coming up next time. I don't usually know what I'm going to be doing next time, but this time I know what I'm doing next time. So it's going to be cool. I'm looking forward to it. And Matt says 120. Yeah, that includes some of out of print stuff, but that's only a few. Douglas says, I like those models. Yep, they're great looking models. These are, I would say, more. If you watched the video that I did recently about heroic scale versus normal scale, I would say these are a little bit less heroic scale and a little bit more towards normal scale. People have relatively normal, wrists. Their wrists are not as big around as their biceps like they are in Games Workshop, heroic scale and that kind of stuff. So it's kind of, I like the models a lot. They're metal, so if you hate metal models, well, then you might not like this. But I have found there's very little, many of them are one piece. So there's not like, it's not like Infinity where they're metal models, but there's 16 parts or something like that. They're relatively easy to put together and they work out nice. And a lot of them are single piece. So it's a great line, and you'll be seeing them painted in 2 weeks. That's my paint challenge to myself. So, anyway, so yeah, that's what's going to be going on, and it's 11 o'clock by me. So I want to thank everybody who's been here at the show and been watching, and I appreciate getting questions, and I appreciate being able to show you some of my stuff and talk about things and go through all that stuff. After this is done, there'll be some processing. YouTube will chew on it for about half an hour or so, maybe 45 minutes, and then they'll spit it out. So if you've just jumped in now, you'll be able to watch the entire thing in less than an hour. It'll pop up, I think, on YouTube, and then you'll be able to watch it, and then you'll be able to comment there. None of the comments that show up here show up, but they don't stay. But yeah, you'll be able to do that. So again, 2 weeks, the every other Sunday show, so 2 weeks, 9 a.m. my time, which is Central. We'll be back, and I'll be showing off these guys over here, and we'll be talking about normal stuff, and I'll be taking your questions. So I want to thank everybody for being at the show today, and we'll see you hopefully in 2 weeks. Have a good day.